Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Welcome back, everyone. Now in the Chevy Silverado Tech Tip, we're answering Rich V's questions. I apologize, I got that kind of confused with Randy and Rich. I'm like a cat. I see something moving, I just can't help myself. Anyway, so before we get to choke tubes real quick, part of his question was about decoys. First things first, Randy, couple dozen decoys. I would highly recommend some sort of motion, okay? Either it be a jerk rig, where you got your floaters on a jerk rig and you're putting motion on the water that way. Unfortunately, in this bass-awkward state, we have to use manual pull string decoys, spinner wing decoys, which is absolutely absurd. But that is also something to consider. Having that flash and a little bit of motion on the water is very important. If you had to pick between one or the other jerk rig, I mean, you have to have some sort of motion. Make those decoys alive somehow. If the wind is blowing enough and it's doing it for you, great. But if you're in a situation, you know, like even this past week where it was just stale, stagnant, and the decoys are just sitting there, not moving at all. I mean, literally, especially later on in the year when the birds are much more educated than they are now, not that they're not now, but they'll get much more educated. They'll see those stagnant decoys sitting there not moving and just get weary and not want to settle up for you. So certainly keep some motion in there. But a couple of dozen decoys, a little bit of motion, a little bit of flash. And if I were to give any advice on decoy placement, don't put them too far out, right? My theory and the way I kind of do things, in most situations, I'm just doing an old school J hook. It all depends on what the wind's doing. But if the wind is not in my face, which is the worst thing possible, I'm trying to keep my decoys relatively close to get started. And my furthest decoy is as far as that I'm willing to shoot, okay? That just gives me a really solid reference on where the birds are working through, where they're settling up, how high they are also comes into play. But when you're talking about setup, the furthest decoy away is the furthest distance I'm willing to take my initial shot, okay? Typically, that's 25 to 30 yards. A lot of folks like to get their decoys quite a ways out there, and in the right situation, that makes sense. If I've got the wind in my face, which is exactly opposite of what you're looking for, you really need to get those decoys out there so you can give the birds room to land between you and the decoys. And that's the only time that I would ever put decoys too far out. Other than that, you can look up all kinds of different videos out there and stories that you can read about J hooks and putting that into the wind. Super important. It just gives something for the birds to look at, and try to make your decoy spread look as big as you can without throwing one there and 20 feet later throwing another one, because that's just not how ducks live, right? And that's another thing that you can also do is go to a local park, listen to what the ducks are doing, and look at how they're kind of relating to each other. If you mimic all those things as best as possible, you can fool them much, much easier. Does it work every time? Absolutely not. But it is the right way to start. Make it look as natural as possible. Now, going back to shot, right? Hopefully that made some sort of sense, but again, Randy, I would look at either shot size of 3 and 2. That's where I would stick, and just make sure you shoot that same round. I can't stress that enough. Choke tubes, though. Always pattern your shotgun. I have 3 Beretta A400s. Every single one of them patterns my particular round a little bit different, oddly enough. Now, I do change my choke tubes. I don't use the factory choke tubes. And learning from Joel Strickland, probably should just go ahead and just shoot the factory tubes and avoid spending the extra money on the aftermarket choke tubes. That's a whole other story, though. But as far as tubes go and patterning, go out and pattern your shotgun. Figure out which tube works best for you. Now, in one of my Berettas, they're all exactly the same. A decoying tube patterns better, or patterns perfect, right? And then if I take that same tube and put it into another gun, it spreads it a little bit different. So somewhere in that barrel where the constriction cone is, it's just somewhat different, right? You just don't get exactly the same. So you always want to pattern your shotgun. 30 yards, 30-inch circle is a great rule of thumb. As many pellets in there as you can get, then you know that you're doing fine. But tubes, most often it's a modified tube that's going to work great for you. Don't over-constrict steel shot, especially, because if you start shooting that full choke or extra full choke, you're just going to blow your patterns out. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to shoot an extra 30 yards. Well, that's not true. Shot shells are shot shells. Their muzzle velocity is the same. They only go so far. They only maintain their speed for so long. the more you constrict it, the more chances you have to just blow it out. So having a wider constriction is an advantage, in my opinion. So modified or improved modified, depending on what your particular shotgun and round likes, okay? So understanding all that, I know that it might sound confusing to some, but at the very least, don't overthink it. Go buy yourself some ammo that you can afford, right? For me, what I can justify is that it's a lot more expensive these days than it was just 10 years ago. But $180, $190 a case for the blue box Federal. It's great burning. It's just not that dirty. It's not like a high-end round, but again, it's only $17 a box as opposed to $39 a box like some of the bismuth and tungsten shells are. But so get a good supply. Shoot the same stuff, okay? And if I were only going to pick one, it'd be 2s, 3-inch 2s in a 1 1/4 ounce. 1 1/8 is fine. You get a little bit more speed. I'd rather have the extra pellets, okay? You'll learn a lot about that stuff as you go, right? But in the end, Rich, I hope that helps you out and gives you at least a good reference point. And at 73 years, and you've only been hunting them for 2 years, I love you, man. That's just awesome. I hope that it helps in some way. Number one rule, though, location. That means more than anything, right? If you've got a good spot where the birds want to be, you're way ahead of the game. Don't overthink it, right? Just get yourself that good spot, and learning how to call will help out tremendously. It's rule number 3. But at the very least, that will give you a good reference point for your shot to shoot. Okay. All right, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, I tried to buy some time for Steve Cahoon of In the Zone. I said that wrong again, Ryan. He's also a Brad's pro staffer and a good friend of mine. Hopefully, we can get some good reception and find out what's going on for him real time on the Columbia.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. Procure bait sense, ruthlessly effective.